Hello, today is Sunday, April 26th of 2026. Welcome to Generally Speaking, where I bring you what's happened over the last couple of days, some news, and just some odds and ends, pieces of whatever I found interesting, and I hope you enjoy it. So, let's get started. The European Union has mandated that by 2027, February of 2027, that batteries must be replaceable. Oh, what do you mean replaceable? I can go buy batteries any day, not your AA's, not your AAA. We're talking about batteries like in your cell phone, which I never really knew, but you can't replace them. Or maybe you can, but they're glued in with super glue and like you can't get them out. You need special tools, special acids that will melt steel to get them out, and it's really difficult. And the EU is saying enough of that. You need to be able to replace those batteries, and not just in the phones. Every consumer electronic should be open to you and me, the consumer, just being able to replace the batteries. Now, I know myself, I always upgrade my phone every couple of years, so I've never even seen my battery run out. But I guess if you're going to keep it and you want to replace the battery, yeah, that's a good idea. You know, this reminds me of some stories I was reading about automobiles, high-end Mercedes or Rolls-Royce, one of these high ends or the others, where the company says you can't repair them. You can't do any repairs on the car. And you try to replace a part, and you'll avoid the warranty, and your car will never be serviceable again by any of our official repair shops. So, I mean, that's pretty bad. And, you know, it reminds me also then of another story of Hewlett-Packard in particular. I've been seeing their ink supply things. They got chips in there that you could have plenty of inks, but the chip says it's been in there for this amount of time, and I'm now going to report that you're out of ink. You need to replace your ink, even though you have plenty of ink in there. And don't think of replacing it with some third party just as good as the other one ink, but it's not HP ink. They'll know it right away, and they'll disable your machine. I'm not printing. It's not happening. These companies, they're really terrible. Where's the human heart? You know, does nobody have one anymore? All right, well, so much for that. The United States is short on arms, you know, weapons, bullets, guns. And it's not a wonder with all the ones we've sent to Ukraine and Israel. It's no wonder we're running short. Especially, I was seeing another story about the production line for making our weapons is purposely stretched out and slowed down so that the arms manufacturers can milk it for more money. I don't know why taking longer should get you any more money, but that's the way they think about it. So there's no rapid replacement of arms. Let's go to the state of Louisiana. They have a bill which is going to subject the homeless to either jail or involuntary treatment. Now, treatment, what if there's nothing wrong with you? They must be talking about people that have psychological problems or maybe drug addiction problems. But if you don't have any of those, jail. Now, this is a story worth, you know, hearing about in itself, and all kinds of things you could say about it. But the thing that really caught my eye, and this is all I want to say about it, was their expression about how the people, the homeless, would be subject either to jail or involuntary treatment. Last I heard, jail wasn't voluntary. What's that? Involuntary treatment. But jail's voluntary. You're subject to jail if you want to go. If you don't want to go. No, jail is involuntary also. Hey, you know, get that straight. All right, in Europe once again, EU's financial sovereignty is being threatened, and the dependence on United States financial services, or that's what it's being threatened by, dependence on U.S. financial services. Like what? Like Visa, like Mastercard. You know, they're all over the place. They're very common. They're very easy. They're, you know, world recognized. But the thing is, the United States has this nasty habit nowadays of deciding they don't like someone, so they're going to turn off your Visa card, your Mastercard. And it doesn't just go to them. There's other financial giants, like Google is a financial thing, Yahoo is a financial thing, Amazon. The government can just tell all of them, turn off the spigot anyone who uses them can't use that, can't have any access to it anymore. So this can mess up your life. You know, you can't text anybody. Your email doesn't work. You can't book a hotel. You can't book anything. You got no money. You can't pay for anything with a card. So, you know, the European Union is starting to think this isn't such a great idea. We need to start building our own in-house network. Well, duh, it wouldn't be a problem if the U.S. didn't get so gangster-like and decide we're going to just tell you that we don't like you, so we're going to restrict your money. That's just terrible. All right, let's go to a new subject. Let's talk about ore, iron ore. China gets most of its iron ore from Australia and Brazil because those are two places where you can get good iron ore, because there's cheap iron ore and good iron ore. So they get it from those two places. But they're looking to diversify. And a place that they're turning their eyes to is Guinea in Africa. Now, a lot of companies and countries have seen Guinea as a potential iron ore supplier, but it's never been taken advantage of because it's very far inland where this particular iron ore range of mountains is. Very far inland, and there's no roads getting to the harbor, to the ports. No trains, no rails, and the land itself is very mountainous, and so it's a lot of work involved in trying to even develop it. And corporations, if they see a profit, countries, if they can see a way to strengthen themselves, they'll go for something. But Guinea has just been not a good go. Too many obstacles. Well, China is starting to think, maybe we can overcome those obstacles. And so I thought it was interesting, the implications for the countries like Australia and Brazil. Suddenly, their iron ore isn't the only kid on the block. Now there's someone else. So what's going to happen? That's going to lower the prices of the iron ore that Brazil and Australia can get, and so take a little bit of a loss there. Maybe some of the business, the manufacturing, they'll have to lay off a few people because they won't need as many, they won't have as many exports. Which then brings me back to the concept that I express a lot, which is the whole world, is dependent on everybody else and doesn't necessarily need to be. I mean, all you need is food, right? That's all people need is food. And of course, now you need electricity for your home. Used to be, you had a house, you had a little fireplace, but we kind of get beyond that. Fireplaces don't work so well, in the cold when there's no firewood, and we're not as good at using those old technologies. So yeah, you need energy to keep yourself going. But for the most part, it seems like any country should be able to support its population. I mean, we did when we were all small countries that, weren't all interconnected. They all managed to support themselves. And there was some trading going on, but it wasn't trading because I needed to live. It was trading because, traders thought they could make some money. So all these countries should be able to live by themselves. They shouldn't have to be dependent on all these other countries. Now, maybe because the world's so involved, intertwined, maybe you sort of have to, but it seems like countries should be able to, wean themselves off. I guess that's not going to happen. So the next thing is, why can't everybody be friendly? Make good deals. Listen, you guys make a lot of this stuff. You keep making it, and we'll buy it from you. We make a lot of this stuff, and we'll sell what we make. Now, then you get those poor countries that, we don't make anything. They're kind of hurting. But that's where the kindness, the benevolence of the rest of humanity should be. That we'll still sell you stuff. Not sure how you'll pay for it since you don't make anything. Well, these are things that should be ironed out. The world should be a better place. All right, that's China. All right, here's a story that was a really funny story. It was a sad story, and it's an amazing story about a woman who was a witness to some crime, a murder actually, committed by two persons who were finally cornered. One of them admitted to it. And the other one, well, he's still partner to the crime. When you're a partner to a crime, you're guilty in there too. Well, the one who said I did it, he got put in jail and served his time, and he got out. The other man, for some reason, ended up with a death sentence. And why did he get a death sentence? And you know, when you're on a death sentence, you'd be on death row for like all of your life. It's like a life sentence. It's called a death sentence, but it's sort of like a life sentence with death possibly at some time in the end, either from you just die or we kill you. At any rate, what is the real interesting story here is when the case was originally being investigated, originally happened, the witness, this woman, was being interrogated, questioned, and some police officer got the idea and said that, you know, we can, you know, help you remember, you know, exactly things about this case, about the people, IDing the persons. She was able to ID the one, and the other person, she couldn't ID because he didn't match the description of the second person who she thought she remembered. So they decided to bring in a hypnotist. Say, we can hypnotize you and bring out repressed memories, memories that are hidden, memories that you forgot, and you'll be able to remember who it is. And they hypnotized her, and they pressured her, and they kept convincing her that the second person wasn't somebody who was a white guy with long hair. No, it was a Hispanic guy with short hair. Yeah, just turn the whole story around. So this guy's been appealing this case forever. The other guy's been out of jail. I mean, he had like 12, 15, 13 years, which you wonder how a person who murdered someone just automatically isn't in jail for life. But anyway, he was out. And the other one, who didn't have anything to do with this, he even had an alibi. But, oh, you know how corrupt prosecutors are, judges are, and information gets shown to the jury that is tainted. And here he is, he's trying to fight this, and it goes up to finally the Supreme Court. And so they've got someone testifying about, first of all, how hypnosis is not something that you can use and get a reliable testimony from. And the whole point of this story, as weird as it is, was for this one line that someone mentioned, which made me say this whole story, was trying to bring a witness to professionals, you know, someone who can tell you about hypnosis and tell the Supreme Court about, you know, hypnosis is junk science. They said trying to tell the Supreme Court about junk science is like warning a dog about the dangers of bacon. As the Supreme Court, they hear junk science, they don't care, they like it. They actually like junk science, just like the dogs like the bacon. So that was a funny thing. There's a long story. By the way, if you made it this far, please give a like, a subscribe, and notify so that you get more of these wonderful and insightful videos of mine. Okay, let's go to Canada. Alberta, to be exact. You know, United States, they have states. Canada, they have provinces. I think they're called provinces. And Alberta is one of them. And up there, the health industry is trying to get a situation like we have in the United States, where you have, instead of the government takes care of everything, there's no middleman. The health industry up there wants to introduce a middleman, them, so that they can get a piece of the pie, so they can get this action, and there'll be a privatized health care. And they're starting off with this kind of suggestion that we're not going to take away, you know, what you've got, keep what you've got, but we're going to add to it. We're going to add a privatized one. So you would be waiting in line. That's the biggest complaint about these everybody gets covered healthcare programs, is that it's always a long wait. You'll wait forever. You'll never get seen. You'll die before you get seen. Well, so they're saying, look, you know, you can keep that, and across the street you can go to the private guy who you know you have to pay. You know, it's private. You pay. If you got the money, you can skip the line. It's like those Disney World things where you go up to the front of the line. You got that front of the line pass, and so you could do that. So that. I wouldn't argue with that. I wouldn't argue with having that in this country. If people have a concern about it and you want to keep paying, sure, have one of those, and plus have health care for all, for the other people don't want to pay for it or can't pay for it. But of course there is a problem with that. You get the people who aren't paying. How about they never get seen because all the paying people go ahead of them? Well, maybe that's not an issue, because the paying people, they're going to the pay for it clinic, so they're not really stepping ahead of it. But what comes next is the pay-for-it system starts getting bigger and bigger and squeezes out the free for everyone. And before you know it, everybody has to pay again, and you get that kind of condition where you have in the United States that the biggest cause of financial ruin in this country is medical expenses. That's really bad. So Alberta, Canada is going. Why are they going there? Because they're paying off the lobbyists. And this story focused on one person in particular who was given thousands of dollars from the healthcare industry. And she's all, yes, I think it'll be great for Canadians. Yeah, as long as she keeps getting money. She doesn't care about Canadians. Another cold-hearted person. All right, what do we got? Another story. Let's go back to Europe. NATO. NATO is moving away from purchasing planes. In this case, one particular plane, one of those early warning systems with the planes. They just keep flying around in the air with their radars checking out, looking, anybody coming, any missiles, any spy planes, anybody coming. And so I'm going to call them AWACS because that's the name of one of the kind of planes that the Americans make, at AWACS. And so, anyway, Boeing has been a big producer of these planes for Europe. But what happened? The United States decided they don't want to buy any more planes from Boeing. Why? What's going on? Well, it's not anything wrong with Boeing. It's just that they decided, we can do things with satellites now. We can, check what's coming and going with satellites. We don't need to pay for planes purchasing, maintenance, gas, crews. We can just have satellites up there. So NATO is thinking, whoa, wait a minute. The Boeing is crashing. Now, I don't know. Boeing isn't crashing. I don't see why Europe wouldn't just say, all right, so the United States doesn't need to buy them anymore. We don't have satellite systems like that, so we need to keep buying them. So we'll keep buying them. But apparently, this is some kind of a shock to the system as they see it. I guess they know more than I know. Well, they definitely know more than I know. What do I know? I know nothing. I'm just repeating what I'm hearing from these stories. Anyway, they decided, okay, listen, it's not good. We're not going with Boeing anymore. We're going to stay local. We're going to go with Saab from Sweden. We're going to buy Saab AWAC kind of planes from them. So there we go. Some more moving away from American manufacturing in just another field, in the military field. So many ways in which the American empire is going down, down, down. All right, let's go back to, let's stay home. All right, I was reading a story about the first town in the U.S., first city that might go belly up because of drought. No water. Town is going to die. No water. It was Corpus Christi, Texas, to be exact, which is a coastal city on the Gulf. And their water supplies are just going down, 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 down. But the real issue here is that, for some reason, a lot of big corporations, petroleum and other corporations, wanted to put down the roots there, wanted to put their companies there. They must have found some benefit. But these companies, they use billions and billions and billions of gallons of water. And their town, Corpus Christi, is on water rationing now. You can get fined $500 if you don't toe the line with the water rationing. But the corporations, they don't have to water ration anything. In fact, they could ramp up and use even more, and they won't get charged a thing. In fact, they get a discount rate on their water supply. And this has been going on for a while, and yet they're still welcoming new towns. And you've got this one person who's the board member, who's has a lot of sway on whether a company comes in or not. He's saying, listen, we got to think about what this town's about, and we want business. We want big business, because it's good for the economy. It's good for the town. Yeah, good for the town. When the town no longer has any drinking water. How do you figure that? But of course, once again, paid a lot of money from all these corporations. So he'll just say wherever he wants. I guess when the water runs out, he'll just move to someplace else. But what really kills me is, what about the corporations? Don't you see this coming? You're just going to keep drinking, and the water will be gone, and now you've got to relocate somewhere. Now, relocating, that's a lot of hassle for a family. It's really traumatic. For a company, not so much. I mean, number one, the board of directors, they don't move at all. They stay wherever they're staying, and they just order the company to move. Now, the people who work there, they kind of get screwed. Now, sometimes they get, offered deals. Listen, if you'll move halfway across the country to where we're going to put some business, then you can come. But it's so upsetting. And these companies, they don't care. That's the problem. That's the whole problem with this company, this country. There's no caring. There's no thought. There's no forethought. There's no oversight on the whole damn, story on what's good for here, there, and the other where. So at any rate, there you go. Corpus Christi. And as long as I'm mentioning that, I was looking about drought stuff in particular, and where I live in the southeast now in the Carolinas, we're going through a drought. It's been a couple of years going now, and the drought levels are down in the range of the worst in the worst 3, 4th, 5th worst since they started recording like in 1900. So got a drought going on over here. I used to feel pretty happy where I am. Didn't have too many hurricanes. Snow wasn't bad. Summer's not bad. Hurricanes don't come. No earthquakes. But now, nope, drought's hitting me. Now I have to worry. All right, what do we got here? Oh, whoa, I was watching this interesting story about Earth in a trillion years. Earth in a trillion years. You know what? That's obviously just entertainment. It's not of anything of concern. But it was still very interesting talking about starting from now and all the changes that are happening with the global warming and the separate different climatological environments, elements, like the ocean currents, certain ocean currents. There are certain the gases in the atmosphere, and several other things. I can't remember them all. But how they're all, reaching like tipping points where, even if we stopped everything right now and did everything the scientists recommend, warming would still continue for a while because we've already pushed so much in the air. It doesn't just automatically turn off and stop. The effects are going to keep happening for a while. And it could get really bad. But I thought what was really interesting was they were showing how ice ages come and go, at least in recent geological time. I think there's been like 5 of them regularly in the not too distant past, if you're talking hundreds of thousands of years. And where another ice age will come, and it'll just completely, ruin everything. And on top of that, we've got these super volcanoes, like the one in Yellowstone, and these people were mentioning like 5 other ones around the earth. How these are like life-killing events when these things go off. And then they were saying the one in Yellowstone, it goes off like around every 600,000, 700,000 years. Oh, okay, when was the last one? Oh, about 650,000 years ago. That kind of puts us right in the hot zone. All right, so hey, listen, maybe we got a few thousand years. Don't have to worry about it yet. But it was just the idea that Earth is really so much going to change geologically that humans won't be here anymore. So much of our life forms won't be here anymore. And it's just a curious thing to think about. It starts making you think, maybe we need to get a little bit into space and learn how to, colonize and settle on other planets, which made me think of something else. When you're in space, if you're living on a planet that's got half the gravity of ours, biology changes over generations. The bones would get lighter. The muscles wouldn't be as heavy anymore because you have less of a gravity. The life forms change. They change. And when you say millions of years, life forms from millions of years, humans, millions of years from now, might look a whole lot different from what we look like now. So we are here, first of all, on this earth, it'll just be gone. And even us, as what we look like, won't even be here anymore. So it was just crazy stuff to think about. You think about your day-to-day stuff. What am I going to have for dinner? Should I go out and wash the car? What's on TV? And you don't think about these big things about the whole planet, is going to be gone. So anyway, that was interesting. Hawaii is looking to become another state. I think the first one was Delaware, or it might be Minnesota. I don't remember. That they're pushing for banning corporations giving cash to campaigns. There was this thing called Citizens United, which said it's okay. Corporations are people. How any Supreme Court could have ever come up with this idea that corporations are people is beyond me, even though it's not. But I mean, really, right? They're not people. So how can you do against what the Supreme Court said? And so there was this rule. Well, states are the ones who regulate corporations. We say what this corporation can do when it gets incorporated. And what we can do now is say you can't contribute to campaigns. So this is the end around run kind of thing. So maybe that'll happen, and that will, lower the impact of, big money in campaigns, and maybe everything will just be, small donor contributions, which might make things. And what's another one? Oh, the Electoral College. This is another, some people are for it, some people are against it, but a lot of states are trying to fight against it, and you need a certain amount of states in order to go along with the plan that was put in place to make it happen. And at this point, it's 87% complete, and how it would work is that states that sign into this pact will say, whoever wins the popular vote in our state, we will give them all the electoral votes. There won't be any other kind of how electoral votes work. They'll get them all. But the whole process of this is you need, to win an election, you need to get 270, some number of electoral votes. So what the idea is, you have to get enough states to sign into this that it actually ends up totaling that number of votes. If that many people, that many states sign onto it, then it could happen that finally we'll get popular vote. And I mean, sort of, it'll be popular vote as recorded from those states who signed on to it, not necessarily from the states who didn't. So it might still not actually be the popular vote, but that's what's going on with that. So there you go. All the things going. Oh, what's this? Well, here's one more. The Trump's ballroom. There's a lot of stuff going on with this ballroom. Why does he even have a ballroom? Why did he tear down the West Wing, the East Wing, right? Well, it turns out it's not just a ballroom. He's putting some kind of military stuff underneath, like an emergency protection dome, a fallout shelter, bomb-proof, has an emergency hospital down there, supplies, oxygen, plants, cows, all kinds of things. And where's all this money coming from? Well, we're not going to tell you. What do you mean we're not going to tell you? Yeah, we're not going to tell you. It's all a secret. Congress doesn't know. Nobody knows. We're not telling you because they're just spending our money like crazy, which, almost what difference would it make? We already know they're spending money like crazy. They got this war going on, which everybody loves to say, yeah, money for war, but not for the poor. That's the way that goes. So there you go. I hope you like this. Hope you subscribe, hit the notify bell so you see me again next time I pop up. And otherwise, take care.